On to Chapter 3, Form SN451C, The Trouble with Visas. Monday morning, 7:58 AM, you're neither the first nor the last to shuffle into the conference room for the weekly check-in meeting with the head of the DSSS. Vampires from the night shift check their watches as they settle down for one last task before they can go home and sleep, while wizards and snake people from the day shift clutch coffee because it's not yet 8 in the morning. A demon at the far end of the table is in deep consultation with the archivist about their respective brackets for the upcoming Isthmian Games in Hell? The most convenient chair for you is beside Vanya, who's trying to hide their yawns behind their mug. Up late, you ask? Some of us have work to do, Steele. Did you get the memo? About copying the archivist on filing reports? Sure. So you're finally learning runes, Vanya says. It's not clear if they're impressed or annoyed by your supposed skill in that area, and it's not about to become clear because the Astral Bear has just entered the room. The Astral Bear is, depending on who you ask in the office, either a tyrannical overlord or a cryptical just dictator. She's been in charge of the city's branch of the DSSS for as long as the department has existed, despite at least 3 vigorous attempts to oust her from the job. She is also indisputably a nebulous bear-shaped mass of eddying mist, bright lights gleaming from within, each of which calls to mind unfathomable distances when viewed for more than an instant. It makes her very hard to look at when she's speaking. She gazes around the room, drops as she pads into place at the head of the table, and sets her foggy paws on the folders arranged there. Lo, the long-awaited day of moon turn has come, swift coursing in the morning, the meeting upon us. Memos are given to eyes gaze. Mortals wise will heed them. Wisdom from the bulletin board. Wordsmith first bring us. I don't know what the fudge I just read. Her gaze falls upon you and Vanya. Show off my filing success. I'm really good, I guess. I don't know. I feel like if I let the other one go first, they'll just like dob me in for being shit or something. You set your tablet down in front of you with an email pulled up on the screen. I think it's an excellent idea to keep the archives updated with this information, you say smoothly. After all, we might need to check on exact timing in the future, as well as on the reports themselves. But I was thinking that it might be more efficient to have an online system that handles the reports and copying the archives at once, instead of making everyone email the reports manually. So if we ask IT for a little coding time, you run through your proposal and the potential results in enough detail to sound impressive to the boss, or so you can hope, but not for so long that the rest of the room gets angsty. Fair enough. The rest of the room gives their check-in about the archiving requirement, and the meeting moves on to other matters, disputes over office assignments, upcoming quality assurance checks, a new form design for smoother handling when temporary residents lodge complaints against others in the jurisdiction. There's a presentation from the city liaison on the state bill that's the target of next week's protest. It's an attempt to block the state from setting up any of the new energy substations that take exported power from hell. Something about the ethics of harvesting the anguish of the damned as a clean energy source on the mortal plane of existence. The liaison's not a clear speaker, and it's hard to follow what he's talking about. You take notes on the parts that seem relevant and then find yourself called up for a brief report on the incident on Sunday. Downplay it, bring up the anxiety, give a bland just the facts report. Yeah, we'll just do that. Look, we're going to stick to what happened, the facts, and we're just going to give it how it was. The vampires are on the move because of leyline issues at their usual estate, you say, and the werewolves are objectifying to this movement crossing through their territory. Meanwhile, there are concerns from the human side and from trolls for reasons of violence and noise respectively. Who started it? Asks the vampire across the table and hides a yawn behind her blood of mug. That's right, her blood of mug. You mean, who's at fault? Says the werewolf sitting next to her. Well, it's neither. I'm going to say poorly drawn treaty maps, because it's not really any of their fault, let's be honest. It's just like it's a misunderstanding. Poorly drawn maps, you say. If you draw a line down the middle of a street, you end up with arguments over whether or not standing in the street constitutes a treaty violation. We'll get this settled by making the rules more precise. Before any other question can be raised, the receptionist opens the door to the meeting room. Hey, mediators, she says, there's a wizard's duel starting in the park and we've got complaints called in. Can one of you go over there and check their licenses? You and Vanya exchange a quick glance. Wizard kids throwing fireballs, of course. Better hope the intern's not one of them. I don't know. I don't want to go. But then I'll seem like a crappy dude. I'll go. Screw it. I'll go. You gather up your things, and that's my report on recent traffic blocking interactions between werewolves and vampires. Email me if you have any further questions. Good luck dodging fireballs, says Vanya. You can't tell if they're being sincere or not. Right, let's pop over to this park and stop some wizards. The park's right across the street from the office. It's a breezy little stretch of grass and trees on a sharply rising hill, capped by a picnic area to the right and a cement-laid court to the left. There's a long, winding, wheelchair-accessible path up to the top. Under the circumstances, it seems wiser to take the long set of steep stairs. You reach the top quickly and take a moment to catch your breath before looking over the crowd. Almost 24 people surround the court, all of them standing back behind the painted lines. Some of them are parents with kids in hand, likely just come from a morning ramble through the park, but others look more to be university students and people without any good excuse to be standing here on a Monday morning. No excuse but for the wizard duel gearing up, that is. Someone called in a complaint, but most of the people here have come for the show. There's no keeping young wizards from fighting each other at the drop of a magical hat, so the practice is strictly regulated. It's not supposed to be a spectator sport, but when the park holds one of the few approved dueling grounds on this side of the river, there always ends up being a crowd of people who just happen to be in the area. These duels make me nervous. I'm just going to go duels make me nervous. I'm a human. I don't want to get fireballed. In the office, it's not easy to care that you're the only mundane human around, so you don't drink blood or oil. What of it? Neither do the werewolves. But when people who claim they're still human, aside from a little glimmer of magic, start throwing actual fire around, well, it's a sudden and intense reminder of how fragile you are compared to all the other supernatural types. Worse yet, there's a hazard to other mundane types when they come to watch. Exactly what I'm saying. People and fire don't mix very well. Someone actually suggested making a local sport out of wizard duels last year, but they were shouted down on several sides. As you recall, the only person of note who supported the idea was Kate Sullivan, the city's representative for wizard interests. She said it would be a good outreach method. The words fire hazard were uttered more than once in response, and the whole matter was tabled until after the next round of elections. Today's duelists appear to be two university kids. Duelists usually are squaring off against each other on either side of the court. The concrete wall behind the young man provides coverage against collateral damage, and the open air behind the young woman is supposed to do the same. The spectators, fortunately, are already shuffling around to give clear space on the open side. I'm going to ask them for their permits. I'm not just going to watch. I've got to check that's legit. The crowd seem to be sorting themselves out, so it's just a spot check. Don't worry about it. Permits, please, you call, walking into the middle of the court. Hello, lovely morning. I'm from the DSSS, and I need to see your permits. The wizards sigh, roll their eyes, but dig out crumpled sheets of paper and one email attachment to show off. They actually filled out the dueling forms for once. Now that's a surprise. Go ahead then, you say, once you've satisfied that everything is in order. You step back to a corner of the court to watch the duel, just in case. The wizards square off on the court, hands flexing and auras glittering. To the fall, says one, to the flinch, says the other. They grin. Magic lets college kids have even more fun with their dumb ideas than beer does, it seems. One of them raises her hand, where fire starts gathering, flames licking at each other in a growing sphere. The other cups his hand together around a pool of darkness that seeps between his fingers. That's odd. You've seen plenty of duels before. Something here is wrong. The fire's gathering too quickly. Those shadows are twinning too eagerly around that wizard's fingers. There's a glimmer in the air between them that there shouldn't be. This is not how a duel is supposed to go, and the wizard with the fireball is pulling her hand back to launch the first blast of magic. The sphere swelling in her hand like a balloon on a helium tank. An eager, angry, explosive balloon. Well, I'm not going to step into the middle of the court. That seems dumb. I don't think telling them to stop's going to matter. I mean, I'm just going to tell the crowd to get back, I guess. I don't really know what's going on here. I just said it doesn't seem right. I didn't explain why. Oh, God, there's wounded. There's already wounded, for God's sake. Everyone stand back, you call out in your most authoritative voice. The crowd ignores you, pressing in closer to see the real pyrotechnics begin. Please, you tell a man with a toddler in his arms, stand back. It's a good thing he paused at the outside of the crowd to listen to you when no one else did. That's when the woman with the fireball in her hands let it fly. The fireball roars like you've never heard one before and smashes into the opposing wizard. His shadows rearing up to block portions of it. The rest of the explosion smacks down the backing wall, flames ricocheting off into the crowd. You're lucky you were standing behind her and most of the fire doesn't hit you. What ripples across you doesn't do more than a singe, cinders speckling your face and hands. Some of the spectators aren't nearly so fortunate. Shrieks rise up and the crowd dissolves into a babble of near panic. Call the emergency services, mate. That's what we do. I don't know whether I can treat all these people, and the wizards are the least of the worries at the minute. You have 911 dialed before almost before thinking even. It's what to do when people who aren't troll tough get hit in the face by magical fire. Sounds fair. No one here looks to be seriously injured, but you want professionals on the scene just in case. The dispatcher assures you that they've already been notified and paramedics are on their way. You take a moment longer to look over the destroyed wall and make sure no one needs your personal help. That's one more thing to write a report about for the day. You make your way back to the office, wondering about the fireball. It's a perfectly standard technique, the kind of The kind of thing that wizards specialising in temperature magic would have under control within a few weeks of work. 2 months into the semester, even a freshman student ought to be able to manage it. This line of thought is derailed somewhat when your phone beeps urgently at you. It's a message from the receptionist about people waiting for you in reception. There's no rest for the bureaucrat, is there? The receptionist makes an apologetic sort of gesture as you enter the reception area. They all arrived at once, she whispers, and they all want to talk to you privately. They all appears to be 3 people. Staked out in 3 separate corners of reception area, Patricia Zhao, personal assistant to the leader of the vampires currently having the territory issue, stands in one corner with a leather portfolio clutched to her chest and a briefcase in hand. She's wearing sunglasses indoors, but that's not uncommon for vampires. The troll, who had all these complaints about the noise, sits on a chair in the opposing corner, glaring at Miss Zhao. It's not wearing anything but a tool belt and a badge on a lanyard which declares its name to be Lee. Shay Booker, some kind of assistant or friend to the leader of the werewolf pack, is sprawled across a couch, his feet propped up on the arm. He appears to be asleep. I flexed and the sleeves fell off, declares his tank top. Well, you begin. I was here first, says Lee, rising to its feet. Signed in on the sheet, first and everything, let's talk. I have all my paperwork in order, Miss Zhao. Snaps. You didn't bring any paperwork. You don't even have a phone. Are you going to resolve territorial disputes with a hammer? Might, says Lee. Want to see me try? Right, we'll meet with Lee first because he was here first and we're just going to deal with it that way. And also he was the one that reported it, so he's going to have slightly more information than we do, I assume. There seems like a lively debate over appropriate conflict resolution methods that someone, perhaps a trained mediator such as yourself, should interrupt before the troll does demonstrate hammer usage. Lee, you say, if you would be so kind as to put that away, I'd like to discuss the noise complaints you filed yesterday. About time, mutters the troll and thumps after you towards the conference room. This morning's meetings will take place in room 107E, more colourfully referred to by your colleagues as the danger room because of the yellow caution tape that's plastered over a missing tile in the ceiling for the last 2 years. Someday the budget will cover replacing that tile. For now, the employee handbook has a line about not reaching through, climbing through, or storing things behind ceiling tiles. There's a little memorial plaque in the break room for the employee who prompted that rule. Sadly, it's not large enough to use as a replacement tile. You make sure to sit down where the person facing you won't be staring at the caution tape overhead. Lee takes a seat across from you while you glance over the information the receptionist sent you about its sign-in details, a single name, no title, it pronouns. Lee looks to be one of the more old-school stone trolls with their rejection of certain human cultural norms. Not the type who refuses to come into daylight, though, or he wouldn't be here to make the complaint. How are you going to fix this, the troll demands before you can engage in any polite greetings. Efficiently. Great, Lee says. Whatever, let's get moving. You glance down at your notes. According to the complaint you filed, this is about the noise and traffic issues. The immediate problem has been resolved. Resolved nothing, Lee slaps a hand on the table. It's a good thing these government-issued tables are sturdy and it still shivers under the force. I saw those 2 in reception. This isn't fixed yet and I want it fixed yesterday. So you want them to keep this more private? I'm working on it. I'm trying. Not fast enough, you're not. He glowers at you? Glowers at you. Don't know that word. Some of us are trying to lead decent lives as decent citizens who know better than to take our fights outside where they'll be bothering other people. You know what happens when 2 trolls have a problem with each other? Talk it out? No, Lee says. They punch each other somewhere private, like civilized people, until they're done with it. Keyword. Private. Unfortunately, you say, the state frowns somewhat on private violence as a way to resolve territorial disputes, so we'll have to handle this in the new-fashioned way with paperwork and mediation. Or you could get them all to sit down and shut up by moving the ley lines. Do you think that would resolve the matter? The whole thing started because the ley line's moving, Lee says testily. Didn't it? Yes, it did. Try to keep up. Ley lines move, suddenly the vampires are fidgety, vampires move, werewolves get upset, and now I can't get to work on time. I don't get paid until I clock in, you know. It snorts. Guess you wouldn't know that with your salaried government job. How do ley lines move, you ask? Someone moves them, Lee says, which means someone can move them back. Don't ask me for the details. I didn't study this kind of thing. I went to trade school. I'll be looking into the ley line issue, you said. Really, since you're not involved directly in any of this, if you wanted to get back to your day, I can just take your official complaint and let you go. Take my official complaint? Lee stands up abruptly, looming over the table. Do you think official complaints and paperwork would have stopped the 1973 riots? If people had taken the matter seriously? I don't know what the riots are, so I'm just going to go with I'm not going to ask what the riots were. I feel like I should know if I was in the world. It started small, Lee says. One family of water trolls, a few wizards who thought that they could take away someone's home on account of it not being registered with the human governments. And where did it end? People dead, some trolls, some wizards, and some people who weren't either. A vampire went poof on the front page. People who weren't involved or shouldn't have been involved got done in by idiots over property rights. It ended with people thinking trolls are a bunch of violent jerks who start riots for no good reason when it wasn't even their fault. We're nowhere near that point, you say. Not yet. Do you want to be? I want people to shut up, sit down and do their fights out of sight where no one else will get drawn in, Lee says. I don't care whose heads you got to knock together, but start knocking and get this fixed. I'm ready to knock heads together, let's just say that. Lee sits back in his chair, a flash of surprise crosses his face. Well, it says, well, good. You want a hand with that? Because I've got two. I would need to fill out paperwork first, you say, or second. Sometimes it's violence, then paperwork. Sometimes it's paperwork, then violence. They go together inevitably. This is why I don't work for the government. Lee stands and claps you sympathetically on the shoulder. Call me, okay? On the landline, cell service is crap, all underground. We got to get a repeater installed down there. Because if you're going to have to do paperwork either way, Lee says, you should at least get to break some kneecaps, right? It winks at you on the way out, mouthing, call me again. I'm imagining it in like a dating way, and I don't think it's meant that way. Vanya is waiting in reception when you get there, looking over the sign-in sheet of the desk. They glance up at your arrival. This will take you forever if you do it all by yourself, they say. Let's take one of the people remaining and share reports afterwards. Can't argue, you say, which is rather true. The morning is already getting late. You consider the two people still waiting in the room, with nothing but some plastic plants and each other to keep them entertained. At least no fights have broken out yet. I will take Mr. Booker. I'll take the werewolf. The werewolves are the ones objecting to what other people do, and it seems important to find out if their territory has actually been violated or if they're just being defensive. You turn to the werewolf sprawled across the couch. Mr. Booker. You wait for his eyes to open. I'd like to talk to you about the territory issue now. Shay Booker drops into a chair, arms resting on its back. All a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing, you know, he says. But Joe wanted me to come and talk to you about it. Thank you for coming in. That seems fine. Anytime, says the werewolf breezily. Except during practice or work. And I've got this one class on Thursday nights, right? Where we're doing the stuff with beads because Chris told me, hey, beads are where it's at these days. Do you do beads? Not currently, you say. In any case, I think we should focus on what happened at the intersection. Hey, I agree with you, he says. Mr. Booker, call me Shay, he says. You call me Mr. You make me sound like a referee. Look, it's all about territory, isn't it? So let's talk about territory. Okay, right. Why don't you explain it for me? I'd like to hear your opinion. That's what I'm here for, Shay says with a sigh. Yeah, right, let me figure out how to say it. You start a new line of notes on your tablet and wait. Right, says the werewolf. It's like this. Some while back, I don't remember exactly how long ago, there was this vampire this vampire woman who was the leader at the time, and she fell for this werewolf who was, I don't know, second in command of our pack? Before our time, but Joe was around then. It was all Romeo and Juliet, and no one would have given a damn about them, aside from jokes. You know how people are. Except you say. Shay clears his throat and looks embarrassed. Except, over on the werewolf side, this woman is all, hey, let's you and me push around the people we're with and carve out this new territory where they think we have it. And we think you have it. And it's actually just for the two of us. And I think a tax dodge is in there. I don't get the details. You fight back a headache. Right. You say land deals, tax dodges, Romeo and Juliet. You follow, Shay says, please. Great. Anyway, when people found out, the two of them booked it to Florida, and now Joe's paranoid about vampires stealing our precious territorial territory. You look over the notes on your tablet. What I don't understand. Well, you ought to know, he interrupts, is that the leader of the pack of vampires has got some issues. A whole shelf of them, all bound up like they do in the section of the library where they keep the back issues of periodicals and the fake leather covers and the big print on the spine. Tell me more. It's because of that running off to Florida thing, Shay says. Miss Olsen figures she has to prove she's not going to conspire with anyone, particularly with us, so she's all grr, arr, werewolves bad, and make a big show of it for the people following her. If it's just a show, but that's the problem, she's making such a big show of it, it's turning into actual problem. The problem is the part where she's making it the problem, Shay sighs. And I know Joe isn't helping, and I'm not explaining it great, but if she'd back off, maybe everyone could settle down, I think. It doesn't have to be a big deal. You take plenty of notes and repress the longing for a decent cup of coffee. Maybe there'll be some time after this. It's shaping up to be a long day. Well then, Shay, you say. That's all very well, but we need to settle this before it heats up too far. Right, says the werewolf. We don't want any 1973 all over again. Before my time, that. The 1973 riots were a huge deal, buddy, Shay says. He rests his elbow on the table, leaning towards you earnestly. So these water trolls have a bridge they live under. No official property rights, but they'd been there for ages. These wizards go by the legal rights because of ley line stuff. I don't remember the details, but it turned into this big fight, bigger than anyone involved at the heart. Riots, they call it, but it was more than that. Folks got killed. Vampires, werewolves, trolls, snake people. I think some wizard's grandma bit it because she tried to talk things out when stuff got nasty. I read about it, you say, and your first supervisor said something about it back when you joined the department, but she was never a woman who could explain things succinctly. It set back mundane supernatural relationships by decades. Sure that, but more importantly, Shay says, people died, and I'm not so much in the market for people dying, even if they're vampires. We're pretty much on the same page on this one, right? You sit back to consider all this for a moment. You don't want this to blow up that way, you say, and neither do I, but neither of us has the ability to tell everyone to sit down and play nice. No, she says. You're the expert, buddy. That's why I'm here to talk to you about it, and not at the gym where I'd rather be. I'm missing leg day for this. What do you think? I'll be speaking to the vampires about respecting your territory. I don't know. I don't know what feels right. I don't want to say Joe needs to back off, but Joe needs to back off. Shay spreads his hands. Hey, I'm trying, ain't I? I tell him, bro, you're going to get us all in trouble. We're all going to lose our next match. We won't make it to the finals if we keep trying to rip throats out instead of working on our defense. Sports defense, not this territory kind. Please continue, you say, and shake his hand after you both stand. I'll look into matters here, and I'll be in touch. I'll hold you to that, Shay says. Swing by the gym sometime. 33rd Street. You know the one. Vanya finishes their meeting a few minutes after you and corners you in the break room. Here's the problem, they say briskly. The werewolves are a lot of touchy jerks who are itching to start a fight, or at least some of them are, and it's the ones in charge of that pack. Trying to negotiate things out isn't going to get very far because they're acting in bad faith. Is that what the vampires believe, you ask? That is who I talk to, Vanya says. Honestly, I don't think this requires mediation. I think it requires patience. So long as the vampires stick to the letter of the law, we back them up, and the werewolves aren't dumb enough to start a real fight without some legal backing, now that they know we're watching. What do you think? Red tape will solve everything. Let's talk it out. I think that's the best way. We mediate, as you say. We mediate. It's time to sit people down in a room and make them recount the problems in tedious detail while putting on our serious listening faces until they're ready to resolve their problems just to escape us. That's the plan, yes, says Vanya. And we'll start there, but neither of the groups look ready to stay chatty and not bitey if they meet somewhere less observed. I have confidence in our work. Say a little more emphasis on that plural possessive pronoun while looking at something other than Vanya. Don't you? Well, Vanya says, yes, I'm sure it will be fine. With that mess more or less settled, or at least delayed a few days, you head back to your office to get started on your part of things. After a quick stop in the break room, you are finally getting back to your office after a very busy morning. There's nothing standing between you and these increasingly large stacks of paperwork but an idle wander through the cubicles to say hello to your co-workers, and someone literally standing in front of your door. A demon, by the twitching spade-tipped tail and small black horns, but you're having a little trouble identifying the figure otherwise. They're dressed in an all-black outfit of your usual disaffected colleague student, with tawny eyes and an artful distressed black hair, but, oh yes, they must be one of those demons of the Cubus subtype, succubi, incubi, and so forth. And their appearance keeps shifting as they look around the cubicle farm near your office, taking on the most desirable form they can for whoever they are currently considering. Then they focus on you and brighten. Hello, you must be the mediator from the plaque. Steel, isn't it? They offer you a hand, face, and body shifting as they attempt to settle into a shape you would find appealing. Sexually or romantically, probably either would do, based on your sketchy knowledge of how demons work. I'm usually more into women, I guess. She settles into one form and takes an artful deep breath, blinking winsomely at you as she runs a hand through her equally artful hair. I have a problem, she declares, and you're just the person to solve it for me. I suppose this is part of my job. This has not been a morning to make you long for yet another conversation with strangers, but that's the job you signed up for. I'd be happy to help, you say, ushering the demon into your office. Perfect, she says, with a toothy smile that shows off her teeth as sharp as any werewolf's. You close the door behind the two of you and take a seat at your desk. Just you, a chipper demon, and a large stack of paperwork acquired from everything else you've been up to this morning. The demon takes the chair across from you. The paperwork goes into your inbox. How can I help you? Ah, Hikaru Dakota, but please call me Hikaru. And I think this is a brilliant opportunity for both of us, she says in a bright rush. I have an itty-bitty visa problem, and I'm sure you can solve it to the satisfaction of both of us in no time. It seems dodgy, doesn't it? Visa problem. Little bitty visa problem, Hikaru says. Tiny, minute, infinitesimally small, almost beneath notice, really. You know, I like that thing you do with your hands and that pen. Holding it? Yes, you hold that pen nicely. You wait a moment. My student visa has problems, and I can't afford the bribes at the consul to get their help fixing it, says the demon all in a rush. If I go back to hell now, I'll be in immense trouble. I'll be in an immense amount of trouble, so it stands to reason that a fine, upstanding mediator like you would just love to help me out, wouldn't you? That was a little blunter than you expected from someone of this demonic type. From the glances Hikaru is shooting at the door, the immense amount of trouble might be at reception already. That's going to turn into a problem if it reaches our office before you've worked something out. I want to get something out of this. I want to help her out in particular. Helping is my job. Helping her is my job, which I should do. Right, we're just going to do that. I'm not going to take a bribe. We're just going to help. You stifle a sigh and try to look like a professional, which you are. Lunch and paperwork can both wait. This is your job and you'll get it done. The DSSS is here to help, you say. What's going on with your visa? By problems, says Hikaru delicately, I mean my student visa ran out in the spring. There was supposed to be an extension. I did apply on time, but I got a notice today that the extension wasn't granted, and I'm retroactively disallowed from being on this plane of existence. It happens to the best of us. I can't go back. I really can't. Not until I take care of some business. All I need is a few more weeks while I get things in order. I see. You pull up appropriate forms on your desktop machine. Visa extensions somewhere in the A13 subject of forms, wasn't it? You may need to print this out if it needs to be filled in. If it needs to be filed in other offices as well, I'll get this process started. Really, says Hikaru? You sure there's not anything I can help you with in particular? Tell hell how helpful I was. Well, you say. You might mention to the people back in hell who sent you here and that I've been very helpful, just in case there's a time later where I might be inclined to give me a hand with these sort of details in turn. I go to the consulate myself now and again. I could do that, Hikaru says. She does not deny that there's any faction in hell that sent her to this place. There always is, whatever personal reasons the demon students put down on their visa applications. I'd love to. I'm sure they'd love you too. Really. Who wouldn't? Everyone loves someone who's helpful with little problems like these. It'll all be fine. You take a look at her paperwork, though I'd recommend not leaving this building until we have a preliminary filing in place. There is a fur outside your door. People are speaking in decidedly unprofessional voices, though the walls muffle most of the details. Says Hikaru, I should perhaps note at this point that some of the aforementioned trouble might be a tiny bit closer than I mentioned earlier. Slipped my mind. A tiny bit, you ask, standing up. Itty bitty teeny weeny they may be coming to object to how I missed a deadline. Not important. Paperwork onward, she says, waving her hand toward the desk. Please. You open the door to your office. The current situation, 3 scruffy demons, none of them dressed very well, and thus almost certainly recent imports from hell are opposed to well-established locals, are standing outside your door. A small crowd of your co-workers is engaging in brisk discussion with them, which has not quite broken into violence yet, though one of the snake people that mostly handles zoning issues has transformed back into a snake form to loom over the crowd. Excuse me, you say, and the demons whip around to look at you. What's going on here? Hand the runaway over, snaps the one in the front, and this'll all end without anyone getting hurt. Got it? Well, your senior mediator, Vanya, must be out to lunch, or down in the archives, because they're not anywhere in sight, which makes this your problem. Fortunately, you do have options on how to deal with this kind of thing. Calm discussion. We're going to go calm discussion. It's my job. Remember earlier how we told you that the first 3 chapters are available for free? This is the end of the content. Well, I guess they're going to leave us on a cliffhanger like that. A little bit different. It's a long time. Like, I wouldn't have recorded normally for this long, but it is obviously a lot longer for me to read it than it is for me to play a game. It's something a little different. I do like these kind of like simpler style of games. It's fun to play. It's something different, and I do like to check out lots of different types of games. So that's why we checked out this one. Anyway, obviously this is going to be in multiple parts because otherwise it's going to be like an hour-and-a-half long video. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you'd like to see me play more of this game or more of similar like text-based games, then do let me know. If you have any suggestions, then again, let me know in the comments. Basically, I read you a story. It was like a choose-your-own-adventure, basically. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you did. And I will catch you next time. Bye!